Mental health is a big thing, both in the real world and in media. There are plenty of movies and video games centered around mental health in one way or another. Such is the case with the game we're going to talk about today, a tale filled with psychology and Celtic and Nordic mythology. Here is my review of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice for the Nintendo Switch. Hellblade centers around a Celtic woman named Senua, who is traveling to the Nordic version of Hell to save her lover's soul. Over the course of the game, we see her struggle with this journey both physically and mentally, the whole thing narrated by several voices that seem to be talking to the player, but at the same time Senua seems to be aware of as well. The story is filled with a lot of Norse mythology, though not all of it is 100% accurate to the actual myths. But that combined with Senua's struggles and journey as a person makes this story nothing short of great. It really gets into your head with the psychology aspect, making you wonder what is real in this game and what isn't. It's a really good showcase of mental health and what that meant not only in modern times, but way back in ancient times. When it comes to gameplay, this is a third-person action game with puzzle elements. Now, first of all, the Nintendo Switch version of Hellblade has everything the other versions had. The game itself never really got any DLCs, so we've got the base game here as well as the Hellblade featurette that the game advises you to finish the journey before watching. As you play through the game, you're going to have semi-linear progression. You move through 3D areas, solving puzzles and fighting enemies to move forward. And I say semi-linear because there are 2 points of the game where you have a set goal in multiple areas that you have to go through but can do in any order you want. It is very linear overall, but that freedom of choice with what path you want to go to first makes it feel less like a straight line. Now, as I said a moment ago, navigating through these areas is a mix of puzzles and combat. Every area you go through has puzzles that work in different ways. Some trials have you using gateways to morph an illusionary world to create new paths, while others have you pretty much blinded as you go through a really dark area trying to sneak past enemies and get to the end. It really helps keep things fresh so you're not constantly doing the same exact kind of puzzle in every chapter of the game. Hellblade also has a signature ability called Focus, where Senua looks closely at an object to interact with it in a sort of mysticism way. This feature is mostly used for the rune gateways, where you have certain symbols blocking your path and you have to find something in the environment that can make that same shape. Then we get to the combat system, which almost feels like it's a 3D fighting game. Whenever enemies spawn, you're constantly locked onto the nearest one, and you've got light and heavy attacks you can use to attack them with, as well as being able to block and dodge. It's a pretty simple system overall, but it does get more complex as time goes by with being able to parry and mixing attacks up for different enemies. The focus ability also integrates itself into combat after you've been playing for an hour or two, allowing you to build up focus energy as you fight enemies, and activating a little focus field, allowing you to temporarily slow down time and literally run circles around them. This integration makes things flow so well that it not only makes hordes doable, but a lot of the bosses become fun as everything kind of flows together and is almost like Senua is dancing around the battlefield. Though Senua isn't invincible and you can die, or as the game likes to call it, fail. This is tied to a story bit and threat the game gives you early on. As you see on screen, the game tells you that if you die too many times, all of your progress will be lost and you'll have to start over from the beginning. There is a bit more I want to say concerning this system, but it is a bit spoilery when it comes to the plot, so if you want to hear a little more about it, stay tuned and I'll have a little segment at the very end of the video to talk about it. As we get towards the end of this section, let's talk about how much time you'll be spending here. And in that regard, Hellblade surprised me. Once I got finished with the first set of trials, it almost felt like the game was about to hit its finale, but it kept going for twice as long, giving a bunch more backstory, context, and lore, and that is something I really appreciated. With that in mind, the content and length of this game is about 8 to 10 hours from start to finish, depending on which difficulty level you choose and how long it takes for you to figure out the different puzzles. Next, let's go into presentation. Hellblade is a beautiful game both visually and audibly. and the Switch version is still very beautiful. Now there is a blur factor here, but it's pretty light in docked mode and mostly an annoyance when you're playing the game on the go. On the bright side, the lighting effects of Hellblade really work with this blur well, as a lot of the game is dark and that darkness hides a lot of the blemish. Next, let's talk about audio. Hellblade uses a 3D binaural audio system with all of the voices narrating everything going on the left and right sides. It's a very immersive, almost ASMR-ish design, and when you're using headphones, it gives you an absolutely incredible audio experience. When it comes to performance, it's very smooth overall both in docked and handheld modes, though a few areas of the game do have some small drops. With that out of the way, let's go into battery life. On the original model, Hellblade has a battery range of 2 hours and 22 minutes up to 2 hours and 42 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 2 hours and 31 minutes up to 2 hours and 57 minutes. And on the Redbox or V2 2019 model, it has a range of 4 hours and 6 minutes up to 4 hours and 57 minutes. In conclusion, Hellblade is a great storyteller both for Norse myth and mental health. While the game's presentation is brought down a bit by the blurring in handheld mode, anybody willing to forgive the lighter areas outside of docked will find a beautiful and tragic tale with a satisfying combat system. Reviews to go rates Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice for the Nintendo Switch on 9 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Alright guys, it is time to talk about that permadeath system, and if you have not played this game all the way through, this is your last spoiler warning. This is a pretty big part of the game's plot, so if you don't want to be spoiled on this, get out now. As I said earlier, the game threatens you early on with a story and gameplay thing where there's a rot that grows in Senua's arm the more you die. And if you die so many times, you will get a permanent game over and all of your progress will be deleted. To put it simply, this is a giant lie. The game puts this out there as a bluff to keep you in that tense psychological atmosphere along with Senua. You can die as many times as you want and that rot will eventually stop growing. It really is an interesting aspect as the game not only puts you in a psychological atmosphere, but they try to psychologically mess with the player with this threat. And that's all I really have to talk about regarding that. I wanted it here at the end because of how spoilery it is. So if you're still here, thank you again for watching and have a great day.